Some ideas about what you guys are thinking about with regard to working with divorce in this area. How can this be helpful?
Wait, say that again?
How can having this information be helpful to you as you work with people who are going through divorce?
I think it helps you control your response to their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand that some of it's not, I mean, it's controllable, but yet not. Like you understand why it's happening, so you can step back and view it.
Because maybe it helps you keep out of the fight, flight, freeze.
Yes. I have a statement in my introduction to counseling class. It's called "Avoid the swirling vortex of weirdness." And I view that as a tornado that has little hooks on it, and people will say things because they're hurt, and they will bait you into a fight. Or they'll push you really, really far because they're really angry. Their amygdala's going. When they're saying stuff, they're doing stuff, they're not really in their right mind. Sometimes people get stuck in bad behaviors anyway. But if you can recognize, hey, this is an opportunity for me to stay out and maybe draw you into a better place, then your automatic mirroring response, I mean, we all mirror each other. If you look at a baby and you start smiling at the baby will mirror those things. And so we mirror emotionally, we mirror physically, is that if you can withhold that and draw them to a better place, you can actually keep in a better way from just leaping right into that behavior.
Well, the opposite side of that is sometimes you have people that are just steeped in denial. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that's where I have struggled more with guilt is I will go ahead and mirror their denial by, so you get this under control, you're going to get, yeah, everything's fine. So, everything's going great. You can actually go down the list of accountability things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything's great. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I can see myself getting into the vortex of,
yes.
Yeah, everything's great,
Yes.
But it's like staring you in the face. This is not great.
Mm-mm.
So how do you jolt? I mean, you just get in their face and say, no, everything's not great. You're lying to me. I mean,
yeah. What I usually like to do, I save that for the last one because it's the most aggressive. That happens to be my number one skill is to be aggressive. But I have learned through counseling techniques that the best question to ask is, when was the last time that you? Because when I deal with addicts, they'll tell me everything's going really well, but they just had a binge 2 days ago. And that's not good. I'm doing really good right now. Oh, good. Well, you're going to be good for about 3 days, and then you're going to binge again. I mean, that's what happens, because you don't have more coping skills. What you have is denial skills. And so I'm just going to let this build up, and the binge actually releases the energy, and then you don't do anything different, and so it builds up again, and then you binge, and it builds up again. And what you can do is just say, well, you're just in the release period, and you will binge again. No, I won't. Yes, you will. Let's just kind of talk about this, because this is the cycle. There is a cycle that you can find that people have when they're struggling with something. You've got an anger cycle, you have a drinking cycle, you have a drug use cycle, those kinds of things. And so if you're seeing that, you can just say, well, tell me when the last time was that you had this. And what will happen is they'll either be evasive, or they'll look down, or if they really do want a good relationship with you, they'll stare you in the face and they'll say, well, 2 days ago. That's what you want, 2 days ago. And then you look at them and say, and this has been going on for how many years? How many months? People have a great capacity for pain. But the problem is their binging has to get more severe because they are feeling more pain. And so that's where you can say, this is not good. And something will collapse, something will happen. You know that. You can see the progression of sin. Sin does not naturally decline, it naturally accelerates. And what you're saying then is, this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And sometimes you have to be ready for the crash. It's kind of like the prodigal son. The father let the crash happen and waited for the son to come back. And so sometimes I view myself as the father on the porch, rather than the shepherd going out for the lost sheep. Because if the lost sheep keeps playing hide and seek, the shepherd can't find the sheep. And so I go back to the porch, I go back to the sheep pen, and I wait. Because the sheep, 9 times out of 10, will come back. But I'll still put out the spotlight. I'll still put the lights on. I'll still have the food ready, so to speak, so that when the sheep gets close, the sheep knows that this is still a safe place to come, even when the sheep is not doing very well. We have some situations in our church right now with denial going on, and one of these guys is actually in prison. And I said to him during his pre-trial time, if you go to jail, I'll come and visit with you. My relationship with you will not change. He still maintains his complete and total utter innocence in the face of a conviction. And I just said, I will come and I will visit you. I mean, he and his wife are in absolute denial that they did absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever. And he is wrongly now imprisoned for 10 years. With a trial, with witnesses and everything. So, you know, there is a very high capacity that we have to not deal with the facts of the matter. And so our job is to just keep interacting, no matter what. We absorb it and hand back friendship. You may take it, you may not take it, but I will not treat you the same way that you are treating other people. Now, friendship means good boundaries. You can't walk on me, you can't steal stuff from my house, you might not stay with me, but I will still treat you with dignity and respect. Yeah.
Coming at that from a different angle from earlier, for instance, you said, you know, fighting depression by helping someone else, or fighting lust or masturbation by getting out and doing something physical work or exercise, fighting binging. What are some of the things you would put in those blanks for some of those addictions that you have mentioned? Like which one kind of goes with what?
The number one key to work on any addiction is to be with another person doing something productive. Because if you're all on your own, you've done this, you'll run out of energy all on your own. And if you begin to feel lonely or angry, your whole world caves in on you. But if you're with somebody and you begin to feel lonely and angry, there's a person there that you can begin kind of processing that with. I have not, if you are hanging out with me, one of the reasons, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, one of the reasons that our family, my wife and I, are non-drinkers is not because I believe that alcohol is sinful, or that if you have a beer, that's a sin. But we want to be the place that an alcoholic can come and recognize that I'm going to work with them and you can live a life without it. We want a completely alcohol-free zone for this reason. When I've got somebody who's binging or somebody who's drinking and they're hanging out with me, they might say, well, you don't really know what this is like because you've never had alcohol. And I can say, well, I don't know what it's like to ingest it, but I know what it's like to receive it because my dad is an alcoholic. Secondly, we have a safe place so that you can see, modeling, what life could look like without your addiction, which you don't believe is possible. You don't believe is possible. The reason we are addicted to Jesus, I mean, you hear that terminology. I don't like it. But the reason that we're not addicted to something else is to show an addict that life is possible, walking in the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, in the company of the saints, without having to manipulate my chemicals to cope. I can relate. And so the strongest thing then is to be involved with somebody who needs to have that sort of experience. And then what you do is you send them out to do things. This is what counseling is, actually, is I'm going to send you out to do things, you're going to come back and you're going to talk to me about that. And basically, when you're strong enough, we're going to let you go out and you can begin doing some things, but you still have to have that home base. You get disconnected from the home base, and you're right back down again. Mark Laser, Dr. Mark Laser, who works with sex addicts, says that every sex addict needs 10 accountability partners. 10. Not 1, not 5, but 10. And the reason is that when you start calling people because you're struggling, the first 5 might not answer their phone because it could be 2 o'clock at night. Because, are you hungry? Yeah. Are you lonely? Yeah. Are you tired? Yeah. Are you bored? Yeah. Are you angry? Mm-hmm. You're in a heap of trouble at 2 o'clock in the morning. Nothing good happens for an addict in the middle of the night. And so who are you going to call when everybody else is sleeping? Well, you have promised each other that you'll pick up the phone if one of the people on your accountability list calls you, but I can tell you that I'll sleep right through my phone. I am not a good person to call in the middle of the night. I probably won't hear it. So if I'm on your list, I'll say, yeah, go ahead and call me. And all I know is if I sleep through it, you'll be really ticked at me and say, you don't care. Because what are you having? An amygdala hijack. I do care. I just can't care 24 hours a day about you. I have to sleep sometime. Well, there'll be somebody out of those 10 that will pick up the phone and interact with you on that level. I have a friend who's struggling with same-sex attraction who's in an accountability group online, which has been really fascinating to hear him talk about that. where there are about 50 guys, and at any point in time, there are 50 guys around the world. At any point in time, he can engage and talk to somebody online on Facebook, which is really cool. It's a Facebook group, which is really pretty interesting. Christian people who are processing all of this, recognizing that they don't want to live in this sin. And he can get an interaction with 3 guys immediately, anytime, night or day. As he puts something depressing on there, like I'm all alone and I'm really having a hard time, and boom, something else comes on that thing, because there's a bunch of guys that are around the world that always have their Facebook post shoved to their phone, and somebody will be awake. So it's really a cool thing. And then what I would say is that once you get to a certain point, what you have to do is have a home base that you circle back to. There has to be a person who understands what you're dealing with. They don't have to walk in your shoes, but they have to recognize how big it is for you. Somebody that you can be honest with, and you have to see that person on a rotational basis that is good for you, just to see how things are going. That's what accountability is. That's the way we use accountability. And so I'm out doing things, and I'm working with people, or I'm aligning myself with a group, or I am joining organizations, or I'm volunteering at something. I mean, I'm doing things that I like to do in order to move forward. And then the last thing that I would say, then you can counter with me, because I know I'm answering that more globally than specifically, is you find something that you like to do. That you like to do. For me, it's being outside, it's working outside, and it's doing camping and wilderness backpacking. I can pretty much get outside anytime I want to, so that's really good. If I get really upset, this room will begin to cave in on me. But if I go outside, the earth does not cave in on me. I feel better when I'm outside than when I'm in a house or a building or my office. So if I really begin to feel the pressure, I want to get outside, because there's an automatic thing that starts to happen to me when I get outside, because I'm a naturalist. I know that about myself. Some people love to read books, or they love to read novels, Christian novels. Some people really interact well with a video that they want to see over and over again. Some people like music, and they'll play certain songs when they get a certain way. I mean, I've got on my phone a Christian playlist of the songs that I like, and that's what I listen to. I don't listen to the radio because it drives me crazy, even Christian radio. It's like, I don't like that song. I don't want to hear you, asking me for more money. I want to hear, because I'm so full up with people, I want to hear in that moment in the car what fills me, what gets my deeper self moving and ministers to me way down deep in that emotional area. So you've got to find that one thing. And there's an old book called Happiness is a Choice that I would still recommend to you. It's from the 1980s, from the Minirth Meyer clinics. And it's about depression and codependency. And of course, every addict deals with both those things. Happiness is a Choice. It's an old book. You can pick it up on half.com, really cheap, I'm sure. But he gives an organization of how to put your life together. It's called Happiness is a Choice. And one of the things that he said is 15 minutes a day, which I think you should have more time, but sometimes you only have 15. That's when you do that one thing that you really like, and you look forward to it. Knitting, quilting, watching a television show, whatever brings you pleasure. Where's your pleasure center located? In your amygdala. And you find good pleasure, and you do that good pleasure over and over and over again. It goes into your hippocampus, which means I'm really angry, I'm going to listen to All My Fountains. Because it's a nice little jazzy little contemporary tune. So I'm going to go find my phone, and I'm going to stick All My Fountains Are in You, and I'm not going to sing All My Bile Spews Upon You instead. I'm going to do something good, because my amygdala says music. And so I have that. And so what you want to do is become a mentor, become a friend, be a home base. This is why ministers burn out, by the way. I mean, ministers really care about people. And they understand, I mean, they might not be able to put it into these words, but a minister, and you might have ministered to a person who has worn you completely to a frazzle, is that if we really care a lot, what happens is that we can overcare. And be there for them. And we have to teach them these kinds of skills. So I like to sit down, we call it a plan of care in the child care business. I like to work with somebody on their own plan of attack. What are you going to do when your amygdala flares? What are you going to do when you get really mad about your dad? What are you going to do when you feel all crushed on your prom when your dad doesn't call you back? What are you going to do about that? I mean, it just kills me the way that children are hurt through the divorcing process, because they just cry all the time. And so my whole thing is, what can we do in order to keep moving forward without having this experience ruin you. And what I would say is that that becomes a really personal kind of thing. And most of the time, people know something they want to do. It's just that they don't think about it because it's like they get anxiety and they stop thinking. So you just kind of have to work with them. Other questions you might have? Let me show you a couple more things. I know we're coming up to about 15 minutes. This next one, I want to skip just a little bit because actually this next section, I'm going to actually talk about tomorrow in my sermon about how do you go deep inside of you, because we're going to be talking about the spiritual formation of families out of Galatians chapter 4, verse 19. So that's going to be really cool. And there's this little section that we're going to skip in here actually is the process by which researchers have found that you take the Word of God and you put it deep inside of your soul. And we're going to talk about that for families tomorrow, about how families can be thoroughly Christian by doing those kinds of things. So that's going to be a really cool little thing. So you're not going to miss anything unless you miss that tomorrow. Divorce brings about dramatic changes. These are the 7 stages of grief. And again, denial, you know, when you look at this, sometimes we don't move from stage to stage. And I know that these are familiar to you, but these are 7 instead of 5. And these are wired a little bit differently because they're more from a practitioner standpoint. So the first one is, I can't believe this is happening to me. And if you've experienced this kind of loss, you know that this can just go on for a while. There's no time frame. It just sort of depends on how people are doing with that. The second one is pain and guilt. Pain and guilt. It just hurts. And you can have pain and guilt and then go back to denial. I mean, this kind of zips around. It's not a nice, neat, easy. But this pain and guilt, you can have the scab ripped off anytime. It can be ripped off at a wedding 10 years after a divorce. You can have the pain and did I do the right thing and was I too hard? I had a lady who followed a suggestion that I'd given in class that if her son was listening and her son went and talked to her mom about this, and her mom eventually did it, and it did not produce the results that she wanted to, which is something that we talk about in the class, is if you separate from a spouse, the spouse may